Now let's start the server again, and we'll also start the application. So in the last video we worked on displaying this expense list from the API. Now let's add functionality to add an expense. So if you see in the final application for the add expense, we have this form, and if you see the dashboard, we also have edit functionality. So when I click on edit, we are redirected to the particular edit expense, but it's exactly same. So add expense and this edit expense are exactly same. The only difference is when we edit, the information is pre-populated. So when you are writing any code, you should always think in a way that can you reuse this functionality. So it's the functionality is exactly same, so we can create a common component which we can use for edit expense as well as add expense. So based on whether we are in edit mode or add mode, we'll display pre-populate this information. So let's create form for this. So inside this we have add expense. So currently it's just displaying this information of, it's just displaying this text. So we'll use, for working with forms, we'll use React hook form library. For working with any type of simple as well as complex form, you have all the validation. This is the most popular library you can use because it uses refs, it does not use state, so your application performance will not degrade. So as you know, whenever state changes on every character type, we update that state, so it's a performance issue. Like, so I have this article how to work with React hook form. You can go through this. I have explained it from scratch, how to set up it and how we can use. And this is the most popular library you can always use whenever you want to work with forms. So we first need to install this. Install React hyphen hook hyphen form. You can also check the React hook form npm repository to find out how to use it. So you can see weekly downloads, it's very popular library, and on the website also you can find get started guide where you can see how to use this particular library. So I have explained everything from scratch in this article, so I will include link of that article in the description. Now this is installed, we can restart the application. It's started. Now this is add expense. So as I said, we will be having common form for adding and editing. So let's create a expense form component. So inside components we can create expense form dot tsx. So this is the expense form that will be common for add and edit functionality. Now inside this add expense, we can use this expense form. Now when you go to add expense, you can see expense form text is displayed. So now instead of just expense form, we can add a div. Here I can add a class main content. Let's add heading expense add expense for two. Now you can see add expense text, and here is the expense form. So now to we'll create this expense form. So we'll again go to React Bootstrap, go to components, and you can search for forms. So we'll use these forms. So I can just copy this information. So we have this form, and inside that we have various form group. So you can see this is for email and this is for password. So this is for the email and this is for the password. So we'll copy this. Here I will use form from React. Make sure you are importing correctly. So form is in React Router DOM and React Bootstrap, but we want from React Bootstrap. Let me zoom in this. So we are importing from React Bootstrap. Now I will paste that form.group. So if you see the final application, we have expense type. I can say expense type. So this is a drop down. So instead of form, let's use select. Expense type. Select expense type. Now the options, we have cash and card. These are the only options. So I can say cash, value will be cash. This will be card, value will be card. So for this, the value will be empty. So when we don't select anything. Now this is the form. Let's see how it displays. You can see now expense form is getting displayed. Now let's add for expense date. So date is a normal HTML date. You can see this is a date picker. So we can use this. Go back again, forms overview. You can copy this expense date and type will be date. Placeholder, we don't need placeholder because it's by default date will be displayed. Let's see how it displays. Yeah, you can see it's displaying correct. So form group, form, we have this correctly. Now we have expense amount in USD. So this is also text. Input type equal to text. I can add a placeholder, enter amount, expense amount. So this will be in USD. Now we have a description. So I'll copy again, description, and enter description. So if the description is a larger, it's not normal text box. So for this, we need to give as equal to text area and how many rows we want. Let's say 3. Now if you check, you can see description is larger. Now we also need this button. So you can search for buttons. So we can take this successful. So let's add this in group again. So we'll have some spacing. And here you can say add expense. We need to import this button from React Bootstrap. Now you can see we have this add expense button. Here we are missing the label. Let's add this label form.group. And we can also add these attributes. So this will be expense type. So you can see it's displaying now properly. So we have this add expense and everything is there. So now we'll integrate the React hook form. So we have all the information, form is ready. Now whenever we submit that form, I want to get that data entered by the user. So for this you can use form hook from React hook form, and this hook returns some value. So you can check in the documentation. So you can go to home, click on get started, and here you can see the how to use it. So this is TypeScript version, this is JavaScript version. So let's use this. We are using TypeScript, so let's use this use form. We'll remove this, we'll add it later. We don't want to watch. So this is the register function that we need to use for every input field. So here you need to use dot dot dot, then call that register function, and you need to give unique name. So this is expense type, so you can give the same name, expense underscore type. So by this unique name it identifies what is that input type, and you will get value in this particular property. So user entered value. So we can copy this here for this date also. So it will be expense date. Make sure you are adding to control whatever control, so the input field. So this is select box, not to the label, so that is very important. And here it will be expense amount, and this will be description. Now for this you can also add a required field validation. So you can just add comma, and here you can say required colon true. So this field now become a required field. So I can just copy this, paste it here, then here, and also here. Now all the fields are required. Now for this form, we can add on submit handler. So whenever we submit that form, so to submit we have this button, and make sure you add a type of submit. So it will be correctly submitted, type submit, and this button make sure it's inside the form. So whenever you click on this button, the form will be submitted, and this particular on submit function that will write will be called. Now if you check the documentation for the on submit, we need to call this handle submit method that is coming from use form. So you can call this handle submit directly, and for this you need to provide your own custom method that you create. So you can see here we need to provide on submit, which is defined here. So I can call it on submit again, and it will automatically receive the data entered by the user, and I can provide it here. Now this data you need to specify what is the type of data. So we are getting warning. So data is declared and its implicit type is any. So we need to specify that data is of type expense. So we are importing expense from this types. So it is ID, type, date, amount, and description. Now you can see we are getting error here also. So whatever data we are using, we need to specify here also. So inside use form, you can add these angle brackets, and you can again specify this expense. Now you can see there is no error for this, and we are getting this. It's there is no error for data also. This is because we are not using it. So now we can just log that data to the console. Now let's open the console. Let me refresh this page. So when we submit, you can see this first input field is highlighted. So we have added validation, so required field validation, and we have not provided this. So whenever you click on this, you can see it's automatically focused here. So when I select this date, and if I submit, you will see it, this section, this amount text area will be focused. So when I click on this, you can see this is focused. So this is not filled in. So required field validation is working. We just need to specify that what error we need to display it here. So if you want to see those errors, these errors will come here inside the errors property. So you can print those errors and you will see what it contains. So you can see now we have errors is an object with two properties, expense amount and description, because these are the two fields we have not filled in. So both are required and we have not filled in. If I refresh this and directly submit, you can see initially there are no errors, but when I click on this, now form is submitted, you have not entered all the four details. So you have all the four required fields. So we can find out this and we can display a specific error message for that input field. So just before every input field, so just after every input field, we can add a here condition. So if errors dot expense type, so you can see we correctly get this is errors dot expense type. So it contains, it is present. Then what we'll do, we'll display error message. So what should be the error message? You can check it here. So when I click on this, it will be please enter expense type. So that we'll use it here and we'll give a class of error message. So it will be correctly formatted. So now if there is expense type error, you will see this error message. So let's see that. You can see now it's immediately displayed. Please enter expense type. So for date also we can copy this. So let's copy this and just before this form group and after this input control we can add. Now it's expense date. So whatever value you are providing for register, it will be error will be available by that name. So if it exists, please enter expense date. So please enter now this, please enter expense amount. I can enter here. So this will be expense amount. Now we have description. Please enter description. Now you can see all the validation is working. So if I refresh this, click on this, you can see our validation is working. And as soon as I select one, that error message goes away. This is the beauty of React hook form. It does immediate validation. So when I select this error message is gone. But now if you see, we have this submit handler added. So on submit, and we have defined this function. So this data will get printed only if all the errors are gone. So right now when I click on expense, you can see we are only getting errors. We are not getting that data. So data will be printed only if everything is valid. So some info. Now if I click on add expense, you can see you see that data, and whatever information we have entered, you get this information. So this on submit handler will only be executed if there is no error in your application, in your form, because all of these we have marked as required field. So until they are filled in, your this on submit handler will not be called. That's a good thing. So you don't have to worry about making API call if user has not entered something. So you just need to add this required field validation, display the error message based on what is the type. So this is the name. So based on that, you will get that property inside error subject, and will just display that error message. So this is very easy to use React hook form library. Now as soon as I remove this, you can see we get this error. So it's a instant feedback is given by this particular library, and it uses refs. It does not use state. So your component will not re-render on every character type. If you are using state on every character type, you will be setting state, your component will re-render. This will not happen with this particular library. So you have better performance in your application. So that's why React hook form is the most popular library whenever you want to work with forms. So now we have added this add expense form. So this is dashboard, we have add expense form, and when we submit we have this data also getting added. So in the next video we'll see how to make API call to add this expense to that particular list of expenses to the backend API. So we'll see in the next video.